Now, what happens behind the scenes when you're setting constraints? This is a very interesting topic. So I'll just go back to my schedule. Yeah. So I'm just going to go back to our favorite table, which is the schedule table, because this table will list the early start, early finish, the late start, late finish of your activities. Yeah, I hope you can find there are a few columns like early start, early finish, late start, and late finish. Now, since all these activities are scheduled as soon as possible, the start and finish will be same as early start and early finish. But what happens when I start changing dates? So let me take the same example T2. I'm just going to change the date from 3rd of May to 4th of May. When you do it, you get this constraint alert. What do you want me to do? So I'm just going to use a second option here, that move the stars to that later date and keep that link. Now you would have observed there is a small shading that has been applied. Though the dates have changed, what internally you are applying is you have applied a start no earlier than. When I say start no earlier, which means the early start will be the date what you selected. So it is 4th of May and 5th of May is when it will complete, which means that the current start date and finish date of this activity will be same as early start and early finish. Okay. Similarly, when I am saying this activity, so let me add a couple of columns here so that it's quite easy to see the combination. I'll insert a column called constraint type, another column called constraint date. So you can find wherever we have as soon as possible, the date is not set. It's only for the second activity we have a start no earlier than. But when I say this activity, okay, as a start no later than constraint, okay, now let's see what happens. I'm still getting that alert, what we had discussed yesterday. I'll just say okay to it, which means this activity, okay, I didn't think I changed the date properly. 1 minute. I will just go for what we want. So now you find when you say start no earlier than, you can find your start date and your late start, right? The start date, what you have selected here is the constraint date, what you have selected is 4th of May. So that has been set as the late start, and accordingly the late finish is calculated, whereas the early start and early finish was the original dates. So you can find when you set a start no earlier than, this date has been used as the late start. But when you say start no earlier than, that date will be used as the early start. So as you can see, a very small change in setting constraints might try to shift the early start, early finish, or the late start, late finish to a previous or a later date. But when I say this activity must start on a particular date, when I say must start on a particular date, which means the early start and the late start will be same dates. But as you already know, this was not falling on the critical path. But since I'm saying must start on, which means it cannot start before or later, which means the slack that is left or the buffer time left in this case is 0 days. So as you can see, setting or changing dates directly or setting constraints for some of your activities without having much knowledge about it might make your schedule more static and less dynamic. Okay. So these are the combinations you might want to think about when you're working on Microsoft project. Number one, when it is as soon as possible, your schedule start will be early start, schedule finish will be early finish. When it is start no earlier than, your early start will be same as the constraint date. If it is start no later than, your late start will be same as your constraint date. If it is must start on or must finish on, the early start, early finish will be same as your constraint date. So you need to know what happens behind the scenes when you are setting these constraints. So whenever you are using constraints, the one problem